I could get everybody to please have their seats, because this is going to be a very, very special night. We have a lot of, exciting entertainment for you. We're going to start off with the Rhode Island Professional Firefighters Pipes and Drums. Forward. March.
Mark time, mark. Detail, hold. Left, hey. Detail, present, on. Order, on. Right, face. Forward, on.
Let's have a hand for the Attleboro Police Honor Guard. Thank you. Now I'm going to ask John Bouchard, who is one of our co-chairs, to come up for the opening statements, please.
Hello, everyone. You may be seated. Well, we survived the storm now, didn't we? Believe me, there's a lot of fingernails were bitten for the past day or two, so it worked out perfectly for us. I want to thank everybody for coming today to honor our missing and to honor the families and the victims of 9/11. And I'm so glad that you're here. My name is John Bouchard, and I have been the co-chair for the POW-MIA 9/11 Remembrance Committee for the past 25 years. 25 years ago, we began this quest to remember our POWs and MIAs. Myself and another veteran, Mr. David O'Connell, we started out on the Attleboro Common at Gilbert Perry Square, and we had an overnight encampment for 2 days. We had tents set up throughout the common and also posted veteran sentries who patrolled the encampment perimeter with long rifles throughout the night. We sang and we discussed our active duty time in the military, as well as enjoying a fire to gather around as we prepared for our ceremony the following day. In the morning, my wife and Renee Harrington would serve us all with some great breakfast, which was really appreciated. Now, we did that for approximately 4 years, always on the third Saturday of September, and then 9/11 happened, just prior to our annual encampment. And the committee then decided that we would incorporate this tragic event into our memorial program. Well, it was amazing. It was an amazing event in 2011. The Common filled with hundreds of local residents chanting, USA, USA, USA. Young men were talking and asking about the different branches of the armed forces that they were considering going in to fight for our country. And people were asking for flags, and we had some flags and we passed them out. But there were so many people that were just demanding flags, and we thought and remembered that we had a cellar at the VFW, which wasn't too far away, loaded with flags that we took off to veteran cemeteries, the veterans' graves, and replaced them with new, as we do every year. So we sent a squad of men down to the VFW, and we picked up hundreds of flags, and they were worn and tattered. And they were gone. As soon as we brought them out, these people grabbed them and took them. They were patriotic people. When it hits the fan, we all come together. Well, from then on, 9/11 was permanently incorporated into our yearly event. From Gilbert Perry Square, we relocated to Balfour Park for a couple of years, and then on to the Newell Shelter in Capron Park over here. That didn't work out too well because the animals were very upset we were there. The rifle squad and the singing and so on, so we didn't stay there too long. And now here we are at this beautiful historic site. We had two Attleboro veterans who were World War II prisoners of war from Nazi Germany for a number of years. And one was a Mr. Andy Nizio and a Mr. Al Craven. These guys, for some years, participated and were honorably recognized for their sacrifice to our nation. These gentlemen were of the utmost character. They were old school World War II vets. And I would say they were deeply respected in our community and in the veteran circles. They were like father images to us all, and they're deeply missed. As years went by, we had some POWs from the Hanoi Hilton, a prison camp in Vietnam. They were speakers. They were our keynote speakers. We had wives of missing veterans who were still seeking the whereabouts of their husbands, as well as children about their fathers. We had many honorable speakers and community leaders who joined our group's theme that no man or woman who signed a contract with America, with the military to defend and protect its citizens, should ever be left on foreign soil or attacked in our homeland and be forgotten. This monument and our yearly ceremonial event will solidify this commitment for future generations. We will never, ever forget. This steel you see before us was brought here from New York. All the paperwork and the writings and research was done and initiated by our own Mr. Ed Stanton, who was key in the appropriation of this spandrel from one of the towers. It was a great task to bring it back from the New York hangar where it was stored, along with many other artifacts. Keith Jackson, myself, and Ed Stanton brought it home. And when we arrived in town, we were greeted with great fanfare and many tears, many, many tears. The Goodchilds and the Sainies were present. I will never forget that day. God bless them. So here we are today, 25 years and counting. So many more stories of the past 25 years. I could go on and on. But now let's move on with the program, and I just want to thank you again for being here to be part of this 25th event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. And we're going to call Thea. You ready to come up? She's singing the national anthem, so everybody please stand.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag
Wasn't that amazing? And I just want to make a comment here that Thea's dad is a Navy lieutenant, and he's also a Navy chaplain. So her patriotism runs in the family. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to have you ask you to stand up again because we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry about that. I know, it's like church. So everybody stand, remove your cover. If you're not in the military, please place your right hand over your heart in respect for our flag. If you're military and you're in uniform, please keep your cover on. Present a hand salute to the flag. If you're in the military and you're not in uniform, you may also present a hand salute to the flag or place your hand over your heart. Now, all, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's make sure you can be seated now. Okay. We're going to do the prayer. Do you want them standing for the prayer? We need to stand for the prayer. Yes, we do. And put our hands over the heart. It is church, isn't it? It is church. That's okay.
Thanks, Carol.
And I didn't even introduce you. Let's go. So I didn't introduce this. This is Don Vandal Sr., who's going to say the opening prayer for us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Big Daddy.
Big Dad.
I didn't bring any money. Almighty God, the author of peace, whose boundless love reaches beyond our limited vision, and who holds thy children in tender compassion and concern, we pray for those men and women listed as missing in action. Give especially to the families and loved ones the assurance that none are even missing in thy sight, but held forever in the safety of thy love. So we pray that the day will come when peace will always prevail, so that no more love one need ever again be listed as missing in action. By thy love that strengthens us from inside our lives, and by the grace that gives us courage and strength, we raise this prayer. Let us have a special moment of silence for the 13 fellow comrades who lost their lives trying to save our citizens in Afghanistan. We pray. Amen.
Amen, and thank you. And you may now be seated. I had to check. So, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Julie Hall. I'm a retired Air Force colonel, and I'm honored to be your host this evening. I hope I can do justice to Mr. Tully, who used to have this honor, and now I have the honor. I'd like to make some special acknowledgments. We'd like to acknowledge our Gold Star families and those that were lost who were killed in action. Wayne J. Rock, David Frechette, Sandra Spicer, Lawrence Andrews, Lawrence Woodson, Robert Mitchell, Robert Burns, Jean-Baptiste Casey, Vincent Gravel. We would also like to recognize the special groups who came here to honor our fallen and unidentified and or missing. The veteran motorcycle groups. Rolling Thunder, unfortunately, was not able to make it here because of the storm. It was actually raining in parts where they were. We did have the Elks Riders from the Elks Lodge 1014 with our road captain, Dave Jeffrey. Where are you, Dave? Back there with the sunglasses looking cool. Our escorts from the Attleboro Police Department, thank you so much. And especially the other members of the community that came with the road captain to honor our fallen here at this event tonight. We thank you. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to go into the September 11th portion of our event. So tonight we are also honored to have Captain Jackson to lead our September 11th segment because of his firsthand experience at the site of devastation and destruction that was the tragedy of that infamous day. Captain Jackson served side by side on that hollow ground with his fellow firefighters and first responders. In this tragedy, Captain Jackson developed special bonds with his comrades and their families that will never be broken. But he will also harbor haunting memories that will be part of his life forever. It is our distinct honor to welcome back Captain Keith Jackson.
Thank you, Julie. If I could have Joe Parent, who's also retired from the Attleboro Fire Department. Joe served for many years as a firefighter paramedic on the fire department, and I'd like to ask him to please join me for a moment. So, Joe and I were down at the Trade Center at the same time. I don't know that our paths ever crossed, maybe, you know. But at any rate, Joe was down there with the Rhode Island DMAT team, #1, which is Disaster Assistance Medical Team. So Joe spent some time down there with the Rhode Island team. Also present at the Trade Center was Massachusetts DMAT teams 1 and 2, as well as the USAR team, which is Urban Search and Rescue Team #1 out of Beverly, Massachusetts. Another Attleboro resident, Bruce Naslund, retired from the Mansfield Fire Department, and he was a member of that USAR team. And I did see him several times over the course of our time down there, as well as a lot of other Massachusetts guys. So it's really a pleasure to stand here next to Joe. Joe has dedicated his whole life, first in the military, Vietnam veteran. After Vietnam, came back and served on the Attleboro Fire Department, as I said. Also became an RN, worked part-time and then in retirement as a nurse. So it's an honor, again, to be standing next to him. I'd also like to ask Ellen and Bill Goodchild to now join me at the podium, as well as Margaret and Pat Nassani. I'm sure they don't really need to be introduced, but we're very fortunate to have them join us each year at this time. And both the Goodchilds and the Nassanis lost children. They were traveling together aboard Flight 175 to go on a vacation together, and sadly, that was one of the planes into the towers. So Pat did ask if he could say a couple of quick words, so I'll indulge Pat at this time.
Thank you. I noticed on the pamphlet that was passed out, it says, "We will never forget." And we're all talking about our lost loved ones and what had happened on that day. But I just would like to say a couple of words to John Bouchard and Captain Jackson. Things we will also never forget: candlelit ceremonies, heroes rushing to ground zero and coming back, and the haunting sound of taps fading out into the green. And for those, we say thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat. So again, it's really an honor to be here every year. at the invite of the what was started off as the POW-MIA committee, as you now know, the POW-MIA 9/11 committee, unfortunately. But it really is an honor to be here to recognize all of the victims, all of the first responders. Of the victims, the 2,977 victims on September 11th, the death toll actually continues to rise as many first responders suffer from medical conditions as a result of time at the pile. Ironically, 343 New York City firefighters lost their lives that day, and to date, and it could have changed today, but as of 2 days ago, there have been 341 New York City firefighters who have succumbed to injuries as a result of time down at Ground Zero. So sadly, that number does continue to rise. Soon it will exceed the number of firefighters that actually died on that day. New York City Police Department lost 29 officers. I know that their numbers continue to rise. Port Authority Police Department, New York City Emergency Medical Services, as well as some military personnel that were in and around the area at that time. So the numbers continue to rise. I do ask that you keep them in your thoughts and in your prayers. And please, you know, as I said it last year, but there are many young children here, and I hope that as they grow, they continue to come here, and as they become adults, that they continue to come here and bring their children one day. Ed Stanton so eloquently worded the plaque that stands to my right, and it describes the spandrel that was brought up here from the hangar at JFK, as John referred to. But a lot of heart and soul went into building this memorial. It's here for a reason. It's here so that we don't forget, and I hope that we continue to remember our POWs, our MIAs, and those precious lives, victims of 9/11 as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You know, it's interesting. This is a event that still continues in our lives today. Still, you know, wreaks its havoc with us. And another thing, on a lighter note, on a happier note, there are heroes within our own community, and you saw them standing up here. So now I'd like to transition into our POW segment, which is prisoner of war, missing in action. And I also like to put in there, because we do have people that were also killed in action, unfortunately. So if I can ask the Veteran Service Officer, Ben Quell. Hopefully I got your name right, Ben. Oh, he's grimacing. Sorry, Ben.
Okay, thank you, Colonel Hall. I've been asked to come up here and start off the veteran portion of this ceremony tonight. I am a veteran of the global war on terrorism. Actually, the events of 9/11 led to me being recalled into the military. I hadn't worn a uniform in 4 years, and then I got a Western Union telegram in the mail. First words were congratulations. So what I do here for the city as an employee is I serve as the veterans agent. My job is to help veterans in any way I can. The key word there is help, and I'll get back to that in a moment. Since the events of 9/11, almost 3 million men and women in uniform have had to deploy to deadly combat zones, and over 7,000 of them paid the ultimate price. Now, we first and foremost recognize the casualties that come home in a casket draped with a flag, but I also want to take some time to talk about the casualties that did make it home, but to this day continue to suffer. Every day, and I mean it, every day in my office, an Attleboro veteran who is suffering from incurable cancer, from too much Agent Orange in Vietnam, or incurable pulmonary diseases from burning oil pits and burn pits, orthopedic injuries suffered from training or explosions, or they're suffering from mental illness, from clinical depression, PTSD, anxiety. These are things that have affected every aspect of their lives. And again, all I can do is help these veterans. I can't cure them. And I can assure you that the help that I give them falls very, very short of the sacrifices that they have made to this country in its time of greatest need. Now, why is it? Why is it that all these men and women continuously have to don uniforms and make these types of sacrifices? And I think you'll agree that the term that keeps coming to mind is tyrants. Throughout our nation's history, there's always been some guy out there with a lot of hate in his heart, and he calls himself a king or a dictator, or empire, or a religious zealot. And what is it they always attack? Democracy. There's something about our way of life, our peaceful way of life, that threatens them. Well, the tyrants are all dead, and our democracy is still here. So in recognition of that, I'd like to call to the podium some of our elected officials. And first, I'd like to start off with the state senator from the Bristol and Norfolk County, State Senator Paul R. Feeney.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, DJ Nate, for bringing me into a march that I was way off beat walking up to the podium on. But good evening, everybody. We find ourselves together again, standing on community land, and when utilized for this purpose, steeped in these symbols, certainly becomes holy ground. Each year, as we stand here, just as the sun sets on us during this ceremony, so must our differences and divisiveness, disagreements. To remember and to honor this month, on September 11th, the nearly 3,000 lives lost that day 22 years ago, our individualism must fade, our egos must be suppressed. It's why we come together as a community in the city of Attleboro each year with a common purpose. My fellow citizens, our collectivism is comforting, and our solidarity is what strengthens us as a city, as a commonwealth, and as a nation. Each year, I listen to the reflections of Captain Keith Jackson and the many others from across this country that share on-the-ground, first-hand accounts of the aftermath of that day. And I am always struck by a poignant reminder that born of the most horrific, cowardly, evil attack on our people came the most caring, loving, and unwavering acts of kindness, heroism, compassion, and love. It was and continues to be our North Star for how we should treat each other in this country, and in times of crisis and tragedy especially. Tonight also reminds us that in addition to the first responders, the nurses, the tradespeople, faith leaders, and others who descended upon Ground Zero, civilians from across the United States of America, and certainly here in Attleboro, opened their hearts and opened their homes. Patriotism was not just a label, it was a way of life. As a city, Attleboro, like the rest of our nation, showed generosity when it was needed and grace when it counted. Even 22 years later, as we stand here this evening, though the urgency of the moment may have waned, the fact that you are here tonight is a living example of the need for us to continue our mourning of the lives lost, not just through solemn prayer and individual thoughts, but through collective action. By turning to each other in this special place, in the middle of our wonderful city, by saying their names, by telling their stories, by remembering their spirits, honoring their loved ones, lifting up their ideals and fighting for their values, and by supporting the men and women of our armed services that don the uniform to win wars of the past and to prevent wars of the future. I end my remarks today with special gratitude to Colonel Hall, John, our committee, to our veterans agent for the work that you do each and every day, for everybody for bringing us together this evening, and especially to the veterans of Attleboro's posts that remain active and bring reverence to all of our gatherings, to our police and firefighters who toil in difficult jobs and challenging and changing circumstances every single day, and to all of you for being here, for showing up when called upon each and every year. Thank you. May God bless our veterans, and may God bless the city of Attleboro. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Now if I can invite to the podium the 2nd Bristol State Representative, James K. Hawkins.
Thank you. It's always an honor to follow the senator. I was hoping I'd have a cheat sheet in the brochure, because one of the things I've become aware of in the last couple months and longer is it takes a lot of people to make this event go on. John Bouchard, Ed Stanton, Julie Hall, Walter Thibodeau. Now I'm doing it off the top of my head. I don't have a list to follow. But I know that there was a long group of people who worked hard to make this happen. They had a barbecue last week to help fund it so it could continue for the next few years. And this is so important, and I'm so grateful for all your work. We should never forget the horror of people who we lost in 9/11, the horror of people who never came back and their families, and the lasting impact of that is like forever. So appreciate all your hard work to make this happen, and thank you for always allowing me to come up here and speak.
Yeah, I really want to recognize Paul and Jim. As the Veterans Officer, my job is to administer state veteran aid, and we actually were the first state in the country to develop benefits at the state level. We were the first state in the country to have veteran agents at every municipality. Even to this day, most states have people like myself at the county level. But we've understood here in Massachusetts the need to help veterans and their surviving spouses, so we have benefits that no other state had at one point, and now I think they've all sort of tried to catch up to us. But all those benefits were initially laws that were enacted by our state leadership, and so it really is quite. You can be quite proud to be a part of this state when it comes to the care for veterans and their families. Now let's go ahead and move to our municipal elected leaders. Attleboro was incorporated as a town all the way back in 1694, then later became a city in 1914. Responsible for the executive powers of our community, please welcome our duly elected mayor, the Honorable Kathleen D. Simone.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Colonel Hall, my friend. And thank you to the POW 9/11 committee for inviting me and letting me speak tonight. I'll keep my comments brief. Good evening, fellow Americans. I am truly honored and humbled to be here with you this evening. This is, to me, one of the most meaningful events in the city. 8,040 days ago, an act of unmitigated violence and terror marked the beginning of a series of horrific events and war that would forever change our country. Every September since, Americans have gathered together, just as we are here tonight, to pay tribute to the victims and honor the survivors of the September 11th attacks on America. We also recognize the family members who lost someone they love on that fateful day. We also remember and honor the many first responders and volunteers who stepped forward in the aftermath of the attacks with acts of superior bravery and human service. We also gather in September to honor and remember the devotion and courage of our brave American soldiers who were prisoners of war and those who served and never returned home. We remember, too, their family members of those held captives and those still missing, and they must never be forgotten. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do these things. But what does it mean to remember and honor? We cannot give more than those who were killed in the September 11th attacks, or those soldiers held captive or still missing in action. If it is to mean anything, the past and its memory must live in and shape us. It is for us to be attentive to the obligation that comes with memory. It is for us to dedicate ourselves to the telling and retelling of the stories of those we remember and honor. And in so doing, we dedicate ourselves to the past and our future, and devote ourselves again and again and again to the great promise of the country of America, and to all of her people. Thank you.
Before I call my next speaker up, I just want to see if all elected members of our community who are here in attendance could just please stand and be recognized. If you are an elected official in Attleboro, please stand so we know that you're here. I think they're back there. I got them. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm gonna invite up our next speaker. He'll go ahead and introduce some of them. Jay Delisio is our council president. The council, they exercise the legislative powers of our fine city. Jay, if you come up and say a few words, and he's going to bring some of his other council members with him.
Good evening, and what a true solemn honor it is to be here tonight, joined with some of my colleagues. Councilor Peter Blair, Councilor Ty Waterman, Councilor Laura Dolan, Councilor Jonathan Tavares, School Committee Member Scott Domenici. Never forget. That is a promise we all made 22 years ago. Never forget. I fear that that promise has taken a back seat to politics. I will never forget the paralyzing fear of that day 22 years ago. I will never forget how our way of life was needlessly attacked. I will never forget how leaders led in order for our nation to begin to heal. I will never forget driving through an intersection when I was living on the North Shore and driving through Peabody with people standing on all four corners with flags waving, horns beeping, music blaring, USA, USA. I'll never forget that. The patriotic music playing was overshadowed by the cheers and car horns of onlookers as they drove by. I will never forget our first responders who sacrificed their lives on that day, or those who have passed away from illness or injury resulting from that day. I will never forget how our first responders rose to the challenge from across the country, including here in Attleboro. I will never forget how the sounds of sirens changed that day. I will never forget President Bush being told of the attack by Andy Card as the president read to a classroom of school children. I will never forget his speech that night, or his bullhorn speech on the rubble days later. I will never forget the innocent lives lost on this day 22 years ago as they went about their everyday lives. I will never forget the images of bodies falling from hundreds of stories. I will never forget those who fought back on those flights. I will never forget how grateful I am to be standing here today as an American, a father, a brother, a husband, a friend, and your counselor, one of your counselors. I know life is busy, and I know we all know where we were on September 11th, 2001. I know we could never forget what happened, but today, let's focus on what's important. May God continue to bless Attleboro, our veterans, our first responders, and the United States of America. Thank you.
would be remiss too if I didn't recognize a prior member of the council who is now our duly elected city clerk, Kate Jackson. She's back there. Everybody knows, but we got to recognize her. It's just, you know, and I just want to put a few words in for the city council and our mayor. Being your veterans agent, I have never, in years of doing this for you, I have never ever been denied anything by the city leadership. If it's for the benefit of veterans, I need a little extra money for a car to help transport them to their doctor's appointments, or if there's some aid that they need, but it's not really dictated by Chapter 115, but they need it, they get it. So all I got to do is say veteran, and the city leadership supports my office every time. So thank you again to all of our elected members for being here. I'm going to now turn this back over to Colonel Hall.
Sorry. And I just want to thank Ben. Ben, thank you for everything you do for our veterans. And I also want to take this time to just thank all of our veterans that are here. We need to say thank you to all of you, and I don't want to forget that before the night's over, okay? I've got great news for you. I am not your guest speaker tonight. What I do have for you tonight, we want to mix it up. We wanted people to know what really happens when somebody goes through this process from the Defense POW-MIA accounting agency. The accounting agency's mission is to provide the fullest possible accounting for our missing personnel to their families and the nation. And you're going to see, and we're going to watch on this TV screen, just how difficult that is in some cases, the corroboration that goes on, and what these people go through. Extraordinary efforts to do what they do so that we can remember these people and why it's so important. So go ahead and roll the video, Nate.
We write no last chapters. We close no books. We put away no final memories. An end to America's involvement in Vietnam cannot come before we have achieved the fullest possible accounting of those missing in action.
Why keep searching? The answer's simple. You never leave a fallen American behind. The mission of the Defense POW-MIA Accounting Agency, or DPAA, is to provide the fullest possible accounting for our missing personnel to their families and their nation. Strategically located in Arlington, Virginia, with major facilities at Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam, Hawaii, and Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska, the more than 600-person newly established defense agency is jointly manned by soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and Department of Defense civilians with specialized skills. Researching, recovering, identifying, and ultimately returning an individual to their family begins with analysis and investigation. The DPAA experts begin the search by studying all known information regarding the circumstances of each loss. Historians and analysts gather information from U.S. veterans, foreign witnesses, archival records, and other sources. They then create a case file for each unaccounted for American. This file may include historical records, official correspondence, maps, photographs, daily activity logs, and medical and personnel records of the missing person. These files are continually updated until an identification is made.
Once the research has been done here, and we get the command's approval, we send out small teams. It could be up to 2 people, it could be a 10-person team, conducting interviews at a villager's house, at a district office, or in a combination of going to the site first and then conducting the interviews on site.
Once all available information is analyzed, a decision can be made to disinter individuals buried as unknown or conduct field investigations. During a typical investigation mission, personnel interview potential witnesses, conduct on-site reconnaissance, and survey terrain for safety and logistical concerns. Teams also try to generate new leads that may result in future recoveries. The main goal of the investigation is to obtain enough information to correlate or connect a particular site with one or more missing Americans. If enough on-site evidence is found, the site will be recommended for recovery and excavation. Recovery sites range in size from a few square meters, such as in individual burials, to areas larger than football fields for aircraft crashes. DPAA may hire as many as 100 local workers to help with the excavation process.
This job has so many benefits. For me personally, it's an opportunity to serve the country, but also our fighting forces and kind of contribute to that as well. Professionally, it's just an incredible challenge to get to work in all the countries where we work, to travel to these amazing sites, to work with the local villagers and local officials, and just have the opportunity to give somebody some answers after decades of waiting to know what happened to their loved one, and maybe just wrestling with the grief that lack of information and lack of answers brings. We have the chance to resolve that for them, and that's just an incredible opportunity.
Investigative and recovery missions in search of missing Americans take DPAA personnel to distant, remote, and often dangerous locations all over the globe. Rice paddies in Southeast Asia, areas on the Korean Peninsula, 16,000-foot mountaintops in the Himalayas, and underwater sites off the coast of Papua New Guinea. And we still continue to search the battlefields of World War II throughout Europe. After a successful recovery, all evidence is then transported to the DPAA laboratories. Once they've arrived in the lab, the painstaking process of identification begins. This is the final step of the mission, leading to the return of an individual. In many of the cases, an important step in the identification process is DNA analysis, which is accomplished by cutting a bone sample that is sent to the Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory. One of the challenges DPAA faces today is the lack of reference samples from family members of those still unaccounted for. Any person who is a relative of an unaccounted for American is encouraged to contact their service casualty office to ensure there is a DNA reference sample on file for that service member. DPAA makes an identification when all available evidence, remains, artifacts, and historical documents point to the same person. The ID process can take anywhere from a few months to several years to complete. Any unresolved cases are kept open with the hope that new evidence will be found, or new technologies will be developed to make a future identification possible. Once an American has been identified, their remains are returned to their family through their respective service casualty office. They are returned home with full military honors and given the respect they earned through their service and sacrifice for their country.
Oh, as a family member, this agency, to me, is doing phenomenal work, and in a very personal way, because when somebody loses somebody, like my father, and you really don't know what the story is for 70 years, and then you find an agency that knows about him and keeps his memory alive, keeps the mission alive to try to find him. It's very meaningful in a very personal way, because it means you're not just doing this yourself alone. You have a whole body of people who are concerned about finding your dad and bringing him home.
That says something about how we honor our dead, particularly those who have served this nation. I'm very grateful to all of the DPAA and related agencies and the military in general, as they've pursued this in our government, and for our citizens, because they think it's an important enough mission to continue. And the way we value life, and very few nations, I don't think any other nation to this degree does this.
Which, makes me proud to be an American.
I just wanted to yell openly to everybody out there, he's home, he's home. I couldn't believe it. And when I went up and touched his name, I thought, you're home, you're home. It's unbelievable. I'm glad I live in the United States of America and that we have this attitude. Leave no man behind. We're so fortunate. I want you to know, and I know from my own experience, that if something's happened to you, we will be looking for you.
The men and women of the Defense POW-MIA Accounting Agency are united in their effort to recover and return as many of our missing personnel as possible. One more patriot return, one more family that now has answers. One more step in fulfilling our nation's promise.
Thank you. That was much more educational and emotional than anything I could have delivered to you. So thank you for your patience on that. Thank you. You know, the committee has been grappling with this every year. So this is something very, very special I think you're going to like. I don't want to say any more because I know we try to keep these things rolling. But I hope that you enjoy this. We have tried very hard to replicate this, but nobody has been able to memorize this like the gentleman that you're going to see next. Thank you, Nate.
Good evening. One day I stopped at a little town, I don't remember where, and took a leisurely walk through a county courthouse square. And on a park bench, an elderly man was sitting there. I said, "Your courthouse is getting a mite run down." He says, "No, it'll do just fine for our little town." And I said, "I see your flagpole's leaned a little bit, and that's a ragged old flag hanging from it." He said, "Have a seat." And I sat down. "This the first time you've been in our little town?" I said, "I think it is." He says, "Well, I don't like to brag, but we're kind of proud of that ragged old flag. You see, we got a little hole in that flag there when Washington took it across the Delaware. And it got powder burned the night that Francis Scott Key sat watching it, writing, 'Say, can you see?' It got a rip at New Orleans with Pakenham and Jackson tearing at its seams. And it almost fell at the Alamo besides the Texas flag, but it waved on, though. It got cut with a sword at Chancellorsville, and cut again at Shiloh Hill. There was Robert E. Lee and Burnham and Bragg. Oh, the south wind blew mighty hard on that ragged old flag. Near Flanders Field in World War I, she got another hole from a Bertha gun. And she turned blood red in World War II and hung limp and low a time or two. She's been in Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. She went where she was sent by her Uncle Sam. She waved from our ships on the briny foam, but folks have about quit waving back here at home. In our good old land here, she's been abused, she's been burned, defiled, despised, and refused. And the government for which she stands has sometimes been scandalized throughout the land. Yep, she's getting a little old and wearing a mite thin, but she's in pretty good shape for the shape she's in, 'cause she's been through the fire before, And I believe she can be there a long lot more. So we raise her up each morning, and we take her down real slow at night. Oh, we don't let her touch the ground, and we fold her up just right. On second thought, friend, I do like to brag, 'cause I'm mighty darn proud of that ragged old flag.
I think that couldn't be more apropos to what's going on in our country, and thank you, Ray Oberg, of course, for that rendition. I'd like to call our chair up, John Bouchard, because we're going to go on to our candlelight ceremony.
Thank you, Joe. You're doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
All right. Before we get into the candlelight ceremony, a couple of things here. This monument, I would call it, we've had for a number of years. These are the names of the missing in action from Vietnam for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You'll see the stars next to the name. They've been found, they've been brought back to their families. There's 39 left right now. So we're going to try lighting our candles off, and if we could start your candles being lit over at this end, that'd be great. Please don't burn yourself with the candles. Bruce R. Baxter.
Missing in action, sir.
Eugene P. Brzek.
Missing in action, sir.
Kenneth A. Berube.
Missing in action, sir.
Warren W. Bowles.
Missing in action, sir.
Russell P. Bott.
Missing in action, sir.
Deverton C. Cochran.
Missing in action, sir.
Joseph P. Dunn.
Missing in action, sir.
John S. Earl.
Missing in action, sir.
William D. Frawley.
Missing in action, sir.
Roger C. Goghan.
Missing in action, sir.
Richard C. Graves.
Missing in action, sir.
Joseph G. Greenleaf.
Missing in action, sir.
Richard K. Hopper.
Missing in action, sir.
Robert D. Hauer.
Missing in action, sir.
John R. Henn, Jr.
Missing in action, sir.
Henry H. Herron, Jr.
Missing in action, sir.
David H. Holmes.
Missing in action, sir.
Daniel M. Kelly.
Missing in action, sir.
Everett O. Kerr.
Missing in action, sir.
Paul C. King, Jr.
Missing in action, sir.
Gerald F. Kinsman.
Missing in action, sir.
Michael J. Costigan.
Missing in action, sir.
John M. Lever, Jr.
Missing in action, sir.
Henry C. McGann.
Missing in action, sir.
James A. Magnuson, Jr.
Missing in action, sir.
Arthur V. McLaughlin, Jr.
Missing in action, sir.
Carlton P. Miller, Jr.
Missing in action, sir.
William F. Mullen.
Missing in action, sir.
John F. Overlock.
Missing in action, sir.
John R. Painter, Jr.
Missing in action, sir.
Edward F. Rogers.
Missing in action, sir.
James J. Sansone.
Missing in action, sir.
William M. Smith.
Missing in action, sir.
Robert J.C. Todd.
Missing in action, sir.
Orion J. Walker.
Missing in action, sir.
Monette Wheats.
Missing in action, sir.
And finally, Robert H. Gribb.
Missing in action, sir.
I'd be remiss not to mention the men from Attleboro who were killed during the Vietnam War. Joseph E. Nemrosky, Richard C. Glidden, Robert E. Burns, Gary F. Flynn, Francis M. Driscoll, Joseph E. Fallardo, Lawrence O. Woodson, and Robert D. Dutton. May God rest their souls. After the candles are all lit, we remember. As the sun sets upon grain, green, and sea, the light our candles and reflect on the solemnity of this day, we gaze at the flickering flame. As strong as it shines, in a moment it may be blown out. And it reminds us of our POWs, MIAs, and the victims on the attack on America, 11 September 01. The strength, the courage that burns brightly and shows us the way. Yet, in a moment, gone. And we remember the light of each and every man, woman, and child that burned on brightly and was taken from us so quickly. As the bagpipes moan and the carillons peal, amazing grace in the distance, the winds gently kiss the faces that are illuminated. And what do we see? Children, former prisoners of war, family members, elders, veterans, people who simply care. Each and every one a witness, each and every one standing in silent vigil, holding a flickering candle that fights the darkness. And we wait, and we remember, and we will not forget. May God bless the prisoners of war missing in action and the victims of the attack on America. May God grant peace, comfort, and strength to their families. And may God's great perseverance to those who wait. Thank you.
Rifle Squad Commander, take charge of your troops. On a guard, retire the colors. I want to thank everybody for staying with us tonight. I think it was a very good ceremony, very solemn. We made it into the night. All the candles stayed lit. That's a miracle in itself. So on behalf of the Attleboro veterans, I'd like to thank you all for your continued support and the respect in honoring our missing prisoners and those still serving. I want to thank all those who helped make this a special night as possible. Their support is appreciated. It's a special thanks that we give to Nate Adams, because Nate, for the audio support that he always gives. But we asked, as you see, we asked him to take an extra mile for us with the video support. He gave you that wonderful video. It was a success, Nate. You were asked to do more, and you excelled. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you all that come and support and continue to support us, and we'll see you again next year. Thank you.